You're listening to Finding Fortitude, a podcast that aims to help former athletes take good care of their minds and bodies through sustainable, evidence-based health habits. I'm your host, Dr. Tori Williams, a physical therapist, coach, and fellow former athlete who is ready to be part of the change in healthcare and who is on a mission to learn and share about all things health and well-being so that you can be equipped with the knowledge and tools to live your best life. As a reminder, nothing shared on this podcast should be considered medical advice. Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Finding Fortitude. Today's guest on the podcast is one of the coolest humans I know. Fair warning, there will be some cussing on this podcast, as there have been in other episodes. But if you're not a fan of that, you might want to click away now. You have been warned. My guest today is a sports chiropractor and pole dancer who helps people, and I quote, not fuck up their bodies pole dancing. In other words, she coaches and educates pole dancers and pole instructors about how to reduce injuries and get back to pole after injury. She's here today to share her expertise and her experience and to talk about the importance of strength training for reducing injuries and improving sport performance. So without further delay, welcome to the podcast, Dr. Emily Rausch.
Oh, hi. Thank you so much for having me on here. It's so good to see you.
You too. So Emily and I actually go way back. We've known each other for about 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
We were both in the same business coaching mentorship at the same time when we were first starting our businesses as little entrepreneur babies. So
No. Look at us now. The growth.
wild is so wild. So Emily, before we dive in, would you mind giving a little introduction into who you are, what you do, including your educational background and your experience with athletics?
Okay. Hello. Hi, friends. My name is Dr. Emily Rausch, and I am a certified chiropractic sports physician, which is a wordy way of saying I am a chiropractor that specializes in sports. I chose to specialize in pole dancers, pole dancing, which is a wild journey that we can get into if you want to get into it. But I guess like a little bit about my educational background. I went to undergrad. My first bachelor's degree was in exercise and sports science. And then I took like a weird break, like a 7-year break before I decided to go back to chiropractic school, which is where I got a second bachelor's degree in human biology, a master's degree in sports medicine, and then my doctorate in chiropractic. And then I also have a postdoctorate in sports medicine as well. So we got a few degrees.
Hell yeah.
A little bit of student loans. A small amount. And with the sports medicine specialty, I grew up playing sports. I was in 3 sports a year from basically the time I was 5 until my senior year, and then I threw the javelin in college. So I was a track athlete in college. I don't have a dance background. I don't have an artistic athletic background at all. I got into it randomly because I got tired of being an athlete, if that makes sense. The grind of being a college athlete, especially where you go to practice every single day and then you're in the weight room and so much of your life is just centered around a particular sport. And then when I graduated, I had a little loss of identity because I was well, literally, what the fuck do I do with my time and body? I still want to be athletic, but I don't necessarily want to be so rigid. And so I kind of floundered for a little while, and then I feel I saw a Groupon ad for an aerial silks class, and I was oh, that looks fun. Let me go just see what this is about. I fell in love with the hammock, which is a loop of the silk. Was doing that for 5 years, and then in that journey decided to go back to chiropractic school. Was getting fabric burned from doing drops and then having to go into like the hands-on lab for school. And I was like, this does not work because I can't have people touching like open wounds on my back. And I also can't be like sitting out of class because I have open wounds on my back. And so at that point, I had found the other like circus aerial people at chiropractic school, and one of them was a pole instructor. She was actually one of my TAs, which is funny.
Oh, I
And
love
so
that.
my first pole class was like with her, and it was like so fun, kind of weird because earlier in the day she was like grading me for my like chiropractic skills, and then that night it was like act like you have a flashlight in your vagina and you want to show the world your light. And I was like, this is not okay with me. Like I was like, I love this, I love it, I feel like super empowered, but like we can't, I'm not at the point where I could look at you in the eyes like after you told me to pretend like I have a flashlight in my vagina. So we switched to a different studio after that. Um, and that was, gosh, we're in February. So yeah, next month will be 8 years of me pole dancing.
Wow.
And that has been like yeah, a really interesting journey too, because I like went into it just like, oh, I just want to feel, like connected and like a workout without it like really feeling like a workout. And then noticed actually like how I got to my business was I was in class after going to school like all day, and I'm like, the way that you're describing this is not the way that like I just learned about like how the shoulder works and how like a warm up should be ran and how like the body responds to training. Like there's a disconnect that is happening between my like education and what is happening in the studio.
Hmm.
And I just sat there, I was like, whatever, like we're in class, I'm just gonna do whatever like you are telling me to do. But it like kind of planted a seed. And then as I like leveled up, I noticed that like more and more people were being injured, like including myself. I was like struggling with some injuries. And then in my chiropractic education, I got to like the clinical portion. And so I was treating my pole classmates for their like shoulder injuries and their like hamstring injuries. And after a while of seeing like the same thing like over and over, I was like, there's a need here. Like somebody needs to start telling people that like this could be different. Um, and so, well, I don't know. Once again, it was just kind of a like somebody should do it. Like
Hmm.
I don't know who, but like somebody somebody should do it. And it wasn't until it's actually like really interesting to like reflect on this because I randomly got an ad for a circus PT that was going to be in Portland because I was going to school in Portland teaching a workshop. And it was like a light bulb moment went off where I was like, oh my God, like I could specialize in pole dancers. Like I could be the one that does this. Like, what the heck? Um, and so yeah, that like slowly turned into my niche. And at first I just wanted to work with people in person because like chiropractic, a lot of it's like promoted as like a hands-on profession. And so yeah, I had like a whole business plan where I was like, I'm gonna like work at a clinic and I'm gonna like specialize in circus aerial pole dancers. I was working at a clinic in Montana, and like kind of randomly there's like a really big community of circus aerial people in Montana, which like I didn't think
I wouldn't have
there.
guessed that.
Yeah, but yeah, it's like actually like really crazy huge there. So yeah, had that whole plan. The clinic owner that I was working for was not a fan. She was like, absolutely not. To quote her, those people will not be in my clinic. And so yeah, and so that was like a little bit devastating, not gonna lie, because I was like like I had like a whole like 5 year business plan. Like here's how I'm gonna like grow and develop. Um, I feel bad saying this, but like luckily COVID happened. And so that like completely shifted like a lot of things. And so we went from like everything being in person, right? To like people don't want to come in, and like how do we continue helping people when they like can't go to a clinic or they don't want to go into a clinic. And so we really were forced to like lean into our like non-manual therapy skills. Um, which like blessings to me that I had my like sports medicine like master's degree and like postdoctorate where I'm like I don't actually need to touch you to help you
Hmm.
with like pretty much anything. And so yeah, that was actually when like we met, was me being like I have this idea and I don't know if it's gonna work, and I don't really have like a lot of support from the people that are around me, but like I think there's something here. And yeah, it turns out there is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did it. Yeah, 4 years later, I have, gosh, how many different courses do I have? I think I have five different online courses geared towards like different, some of them are like how to not fuck up your shoulders or like hamstrings, knees, ankles, whatever. My most recent one was like a pregnancy and postpartum course, like two different ones for pole dancers that are in those seasons of life. And then my most popular one is teaching instructors how to not fuck up their students, like bodies pole dancing. So we do that. And then I still do like one-on-one injury rehab coaching with people too. And so, yeah, it's wild. The other day, sorry, this is like kind of a squirrel moment, but I had somebody on Reddit get like salty that I was a chiropractor and people being like, you shouldn't trust her, you shouldn't believe her because she's a chiropractor. And I was like, I don't actually remember the last time I adjusted anybody. Like, like truthfully, I was like, when? And like I probably have like at some point like a friend, but I'm like, I don't, it's been like a year and a half since I was like in a clinic, like adjusting somebody. Like everything's done like online. I don't I don't need to touch you. I can just like I can watch you move and tell you like you need to work on this, you need to work on that. Here's some exercises. Like
Yep. Yep.
have fun.
And I think that's like, going back to what you said too about like the whole COVID thing is obviously there were miserable, awful things about COVID, but for me as included, it really, and physical therapists, we really had to dive into, okay, how can we still help people remotely? And if you know what you're doing when you're watching someone move and you can do some things virtually without ever touching them, you can help tons of people online. And I think, at the time, people were kind of forced to adopt that. But now it's become this option that's like, no, you can still do this and we can still really do a lot and help you without ever having to place hands on you.
Yeah. There's a lot of benefit to hands-on care, which because I've had this like people get like salty at me where they're like, "Are you saying that like no one should ever go see anybody in person?" No.
No.
Like of course not. Like I love hands-on care for my own body. Like it feels amazing and there's some things where I'm like no amount of me like moving my body is gonna like completely get my brain to like let this like discomfort go. So let me go have, like the nervous system input of someone's hands on me. But if you don't have access to like a high quality provider that like understands your sport or the person that you do have access to, all they do is passive care and you're wanting to fling your body around like it's, like a fucking feather. Like, I'm sorry, you're gonna need to do more than just like lay on the table and have somebody like massage you. Like,
Yes.
so let me help you fill that gap and like you can continue like go see them as often as you want. And also I'm gonna load the shit out of your body so that you can hang upside down by a toe.
Mhm.
Cool.
Which is like so cool and something that obviously not many of us regular non-pole people have to do or train our bodies for, but like, and you kind of already like answered the next question I had for you was to kind of talk about your philosophy and how it's different from maybe the traditional like very manipulation hands-on based chiro. But I think like just for anybody listening to like really clear the air here, Emily is obviously, with all the things you just heard, is deeply knowledgeable and educated. Okay, so I want to take a note pause for anybody who's coming into this episode having some preconceived notions about chiropractors for one reason or another or hesitations. 100% understand that, but I also want to say in reality, in the healthcare profession, regardless of the field you're in, including physical therapy, there are going to be evidence-based and non-evidence-based providers, better and not so good providers. So I just want to lay that out first. And the fact that Emily's even on this podcast is going to tell you enough about my trust in her and how much respect I have for her and the way that she practices. So I guess we'll do that. I'll put it in quotes. Not all chiropractors are pseudoscientific. Okay. All right. There, I said it. Now we're done. Moving on.
Moving on.
Moving on. And I'm sure you're tired of having to do that to an extent too. So I just wanted to say that for you so you don't have to.
Thank
Um,
you.
so let's talk more about strength training and rehab and your philosophy and how you prepare people to hang by their toes on a pole. Um, what role does resistance training play in pole dancing and preparing people for pole, both from a performance perspective, but also for injury risk?
Yeah, really great question. So I think there's still it's like getting less and less, but there's still like a misconception that like dance or like artistic based sports don't need to strength train because they like don't need to be strong. They need to like be bendy and like have these like really pretty lines and you know, not look like anything hurts, like all of those sorts of things, which yes. And also it takes a lot of strength to do like really artistic things. And kind of zooming out of the pole world and just looking at like the dance world broadly and like gymnastics too, there was a time where they're like, oh no, we don't need to resistance train. And then they started implementing even like high level ballet dancers, like they go into a weight room and like strength train on a regular basis. Like high level, Olympic level gymnasts are in the weight room on like a regular basis because they recognize that the more load your body can handle or like tolerate, the more crazy things you can do with it. So when I first started posting content for pole dancers, me saying like, hey, you should pick up a weight. Like you should pick up like probably a heavy weight on like a fairly consistent basis was met with this like, fuck you, like no. And I'm like, I promise it will help you be able to do cooler things on the pole. And so yeah, like I kept just, I don't know, like having to like say the same thing over and over again.
Hmm.
And um I would say like luckily there's been kind of a shift that's happened in the past like 2 years where people are realizing like, no, you don't have to go lift like, you know, like a CrossFitter or like a crazy, you know, power lifter
Right.
or like Ollie lifter. Like you just need to have your tissues be able to handle like the forces that you're putting through them. And if they can handle more than just your body weight, then like flinging your body weight around will be really easy. Um, so I kind of go like back and forth between do I talk about like you can do cooler shit on the pole if you lift heavy weights or like you can like not be hurt if you lift weights. So those are kind of my like two, I don't know, I go like back and forth between like which one are you going to care about um more? And then the yeah, just talking about like the prevalence of injuries in pole dancers too has been I think like really helpful because um
Is there any data on that? Like, is there
there
very much?
not a lot
Yeah.
to be honest, but the data that we do have is like it's actually like pretty devastating. It's like 80% of pole dancers are injured
Hmm.
at some point, which is crazy. Like if you were to think of like any other form of movement, 80% of people being injured, they would be like, what literally what the fuck are we doing here?
Hmm.
Like no. And so yeah, there being more research and like more interest around like the demands of the sport and like the injury rates and well body parts are being injured has like definitely helped me like be able to be like look you know like you don't want this to be you like you don't want to be the person that like can't do the thing that you love because you're hurt and so either you don't do as hard of stuff which like nobody wants to do, right? Like everybody wants to do, well, I shouldn't say everybody. Most people want to do like the crazy things. Not me. My happy ass stays on the ground. Like, no, thank you. But most people want to do the like cool things that they see people doing on social media. And so I'm like, if that's your goal, like you can't be injured, right? You
Hmm.
can't be trying to, you know, oversplit and your hamstring is like screaming at you. Or like not able to take your shirt off when you're done pole dancing because your shoulder hurts so bad. So yeah, what do we need to do? And a lot of it is like being honest about your capacity and doing whatever you can to improve your capacity.
Yep.
It's going to be more than like foam rolling and like stretching. Like, yeah, those things don't make you stronger.
Yeah, well, and I can imagine also, and you and I have talked about this before, but like there's still, unfortunately, the narrative that if you lift heavy weights, and heavy is relative, right? I mean,
Mhm.
for some people, heavy is like 10 pounds, and for other people, heavy is like 500 pounds. Like there's lots of variability there.
Yeah.
But there's still a misconception that like if you lift anything heavy, you're going to be quote unquote bulky and you're not going to look the typical, maybe stereotypical, I can hang upside down on a pole body image. So are
Hmm.
you still dealing with a lot of like that type of narrative too in the pole community, or is that also improving a little bit?
Yeah, it's interesting because people this like I feel like that's just like societal, right? Like especially because a lot of people that I would say the majority of people that pole dance are like assigned female at birth, and so they're aware of like how their body looks, and then we're wearing like very little clothes, like more often than not, and so like it's kind of a thing, and for a lot of people, just the act of doing pole without doing like anything else, they like grow muscle. And so they're like, oh my God, I look like I'm like hulking like out of things. And I'm like, that's like a normal response. It's a normal response to training.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I think like a little bit. But I guess maybe it might just be my bubble that I'm in where like women are leaning more into like I want to be able to do cool things with my body versus like I really care how my body looks.
Mm.
And that's yeah, a message that like I try to promote with my stuff too, where I'm like I don't really care if I have to like get a bigger shirt or like, my arms like look big or whatever. Like I want to not have my body hurt and I want to be able to do what I want to do with it without the like fear of something happening to it.
Yeah, yeah. And that's totally my message too. It's like I care more about what strength training allows you to do than how it makes you look. But I mean, I guess maybe it's just the algorithm lately that sometimes I'm being fed still this idea of like Pilates arms and,
Mm,
summer is coming and like, all that kind of stuff where it's like,
yeah.
like we just keep saying, it seems like you and I and other providers we know are just like screaming the same messages every year. And I do think there has been change. Like I have seen more of a movement towards like function over what your body looks like. But I think it's
Yeah.
still obviously, like you said, societally, it's still this huge underpinning thing that I think we're going to keep
Yeah.
dealing with.
Yeah, I think it would, I mean, we'd have to like dismantle a lot of like systems to have it, yeah, be completely gone,
True.
which is like super unfortunate. So, because I get the same thing, like especially lately, where it's like we're like 3 months out from summer. Like, do you have your bikini body? And I'm like, everybody's a bikini body. Like, literally, there's so much more like important things going on in the
Oh my
world
gosh. Yeah.
like, than us to like, yeah, figure out like how to be small, like in the meat suit that we exist in. Um, and so I don't know, just keep fighting the good fight.
Yeah, you're so right. The body image is the last thing I give a shit about right now.
Yeah. Yep, yep. Which,
Ugh.
yeah, like I'll hold space for the fact that like it's real, right? Like caring about it doesn't necessarily like make you, like a bad person or like, it's normal to like care about, yeah, how you're perceived, but the like, oh, I'm gonna starve myself, or I'm only gonna eat like 1,200 calories, and I'm gonna be on the Stairmaster for 80,000 hours, like trying to like burn fat to have like a specific body. No. And also, I will tell you, if you want to have, because I actually get this a lot where people will be like, what's your diet? And like, what do you do? And I'm like, I look the way that I look because I eat really well and I lift heavy shit. And so if that is your goal, like the bikini body, you can get it by fueling your body and lifting heavy shit, or you can get it from like starving yourself and being fucking miserable. One sounds a lot better.
Hmm. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and then again, I think you nailed it earlier. It's like there's a lot of other things that we would have to break down, a lot of other systems and intersections that would have to be addressed in order to like really like adequately give this conversation the context that it needs to, just in regards to body
Yeah.
image and how bodies are perceived and all that.
Yeah.
Okay, so back on track. That was me. I took us on that tangent. I'm coming back now.
I love it though.
So what for you tends to be like the most common injuries or ailments that you see in the pole community?
Hands down shoulders. It's a very upper body heavy sport. So a lot of like rotator cuff weakness and like shoulder instability stuff happening as a result. Um, yeah, for sure, like the number one, like shoulders are like my bread and butter with injuries. And then second is probably hamstring. And then we kind of get into like ankle sprains or like wrist injuries, random little rib things going on. Um, yeah, that'd be like the order.
Okay, that makes sense. And you have your own experience with a shoulder injury that That's a few years ago now. Yeah.
It stays being a little bitch. My left shoulder, yeah. So like a plus and a minus of like artistic things is like I call them floppy people. Like hypermobile people tend to be like gravitate towards forms of movement where their hypermobility like is a benefit. Um, and I'm one of them where like I have hypermobile shoulders and more than anything, like the other parts of my body are like more mobile than normal, but my shoulders are definitely like on the floppy side. And so that's actually how I started working with people was I dislocated my shoulder or like subluxed my shoulder, kind of in that like gray-ish, like was it actually dislocated? Was it actually subluxed? Area. And I was super frustrated being like, I know a lot about the body. I just like cannot take myself out of my body and like examine my own self. And so like I just need somebody to tell me like what is happening with myself and then I will go do my own rehab. And yeah, trying to get people to like understand what I needed my shoulder to be able to do was like pulling teeth. And I was like, oh my God, like if with the education that I have, and like I can't walk into a clinic and say like this is what I need my body to be able to do. Is it doing it or not? Like how is the average person navigating this like healthcare situation? So um yeah, that's where I started working with people and once again, it's gone really well, but then the downside of my own body is like when you're hypermobile, you're always kind of battling like what does it need to stay stable and kind of like where is the threshold of like prehab rehabby stuff versus like the load that I'm putting through it on the pole. And we overshot it a handful of times. And so
It's
we're like,
bound to
oh
happen. Yep.
yeah, which like yeah is it's like an ego hit for me every single time it happens because I'm like, fuck.
Hmm.
Like I thought I had figured this out. I figured out like kind of where my like limits are for things. And then I'm like, oh well we did too much. And so let us like back down and like, you know, kind of re-examine, figure out like what else my body needs. But a plus of that is like everything that like I learn about my own journey with it, people get to benefit from. So
Yep. And that's exactly what I say. I'm like, yeah, just because we're rehab providers and we know a lot doesn't always mean that we'd never have injuries, right? Like that's not I don't think the goal is to never have injuries. It's to reduce your risk for injuries for sure, as much
yeah.
as possible. But there's going to be times where you overshoot and like human error is going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think, again, that just kind of underpins the importance of strength training in rehab, particularly with the hypermobile community. So I'm also fairly hypermobile. I also deal with this trying to figure out where the threshold is. And sometimes I overshoot as well. But for me, like strength training, like single-handedly has been the one thing that has really helped. Can you touch on why you already mentioned that like hypermobility is something that you see a lot in the pole community. Can you touch on why strength training is so helpful for those folks?
Yeah. So hypermobility is a spectrum. And there's like a wide range of like you could have like one like hypermobile joint, or you could have like system-wide like symptoms of hypermobility because your collagen structure is different when you are on the hypermobile spectrum than a non-hypermobile person. So um, typically people's ligaments are what keep your bones connected and they're not stretchy. They like provide a lot of stability in the like joint connections, the joint articulations. And when you're hypermobile, you have like more give in sometimes once again it's like system wide, even to like your stomach is like affected and like your like, you know, intestines and stuff, heart, like all of it. But on the lower end, which is where I'm at with it, um, things just like to leave their assigned seat more often than they are supposed to. And so not having that yeah, check of your ligaments, keeping things together, your muscles are what provide you stability. And when you are trying to move your body, which is like asking your muscles to, you know, be in different positions and generate force in different positions, they're kind of having to do like two jobs, like double work, where they're like, I need to stabilize this, but I also need to like generate force and like be able to move through this range of motion. So the stronger they are in the more positions, the more stable your joints will be. And how do you get strong in more positions is like training strength. And so it can be, I think kind of a misconception too that people have is like you have to do like weights or like heavy things to like build strength. And like a lot of my, especially my shoulder work is like banded exercises and like wonky ass positions. Oh, yeah, and it's not the like it's not this, right? I'm like I'm gonna be like fucking here like doing shit. I'm gonna be like here doing shit. Um
For those of you listening who can't see, she just put her arm like overhead and then behind her head and then like behind her back. Because in pole, you have to be able to access all those positions.
we're doing like weird like entire body weight hanging off of like end range flexion, end range internal rotation. Like yeah, you gotta be you gotta have like the ability to like stabilize. And if you don't like a lot of times like in that especially that position, it's called twisted grip, like you'd be like relying on your ligaments being the like stable structure. And if they're not stable, like your muscles got to be able to hold you
Yeah.
like yeah in that position. So um I yeah, I guess my like dream would be that like every hypermobile person start strength training. And let's go of the idea, like we said this before, like heavy is relative. And so there's a lot of my like strength exercises where I'm like, I got a 5 pound plate, like I got like a change plate, and I'm like fucking struggling like crazy to move this. But I know like if I don't do it, then I'm like actively getting weaker, and that's not gonna serve me
Yep.
for my sport or for me like aging as a human either.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple things to be said there. The first one would be like sometimes you have to drop weight in order to train through your full available range of motion, right? So if somebody has a lot of mobility, and I'll use myself as an example too, because my shoulders are also quite hypermobile, like I'm trying to do pull-ups this year. I have a really hard time at like the very bottom and at the very top. And I
Mhm.
know that part of the reason for that is because my shoulders have so much motion. So like sometimes I have to drop my weight way down and just train those end ranges of motion in order to just train those regions. Because if you go at your heaviest, you're not going to be able to access those end ranges of motion. So then you're not training them. Uh,
Yeah.
so it can look really different based on, your body. But I think it's really important that like strength training, it doesn't just mean you load up a barbell and you go as heavy as you can. And it can mean a lot of different things for a lot of
Yeah.
different needs.
Yeah. And then we kind of go into because a lot of my hypermobile people, the battle that I have with them is like we've built the like baby strength where I'm like, okay, you can handle lifting like 5 pounds, you can handle lifting 10 pounds. Like I'm gonna need you to like actually load your body. And there's like the apprehension because they know that they have a lot of mobility in whatever joint. And I'm like, I promise you, like it's gonna be scary and like we can like incrementally like increase, but you being able to lift like closer to your body weight is going to make your shoulders feel a lot better.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think like if you're looking at the demands of the thing you're trying to be able to do,
Hmm.
it's gonna be worse if you just go on the pole or do whatever sport you do and expose yourself to that. Yeah, the risk of injury is just like exponentially huger if you've never been exposed to that.
Yeah, and I think this is just like the messaging for like hypermobile people too is like don't lift over 5 pounds and like stay in the banded, like your body's floppy, like you're fragile. And I'm like, no, not permanently, right? Like you might be in like a fragile state currently because you haven't like built the capacity to handle more load. But why do we want to keep you in this fragile state? Like
Yes.
I'm gonna need you to like eke, even if you didn't want to throw your body weight around, like if you want to be able to pick up your child or like put your groceries away, like all of those things weigh more than 5 pounds. I can guarantee your bag of groceries weighs more than 5 pounds. And so like if that is beyond your like regular capacity, like no wonder why your shoulder hurts all the fucking time or your whatever, your low back hurts, your ankles hurt, whatever. Like you're staying way too far down. We need to get that up.
Yeah, and not doing those things, or like trying to stay away from anything that loads you extra feels like the safe thing to do. But what you're actually
Hmm.
doing is making yourself more weak and more susceptible to
Yeah.
issues and injuries. And instead of slowly, gradually exposing yourself to more load and actually making your body more robust and resilient. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a like a shitty, I call it a carousel, like a shitty carousel that people find themselves on, where they're like, I'm under like underloaded, so my capacity is really low, and then I like do something that's like beyond my capacity. Well, now I'm hurt, so I'm gonna rest, and so I'm like once again like deconditioned even more, and then I'm not actually gonna try to build my capacity back up. Well, let me try to do whatever daily task I was doing before. Oh, that's still too much, and so they just find themselves in this very devastating, yeah, cycle. And so to like exit it, and like we gotta be intentional
Yep.
with it. And it's a lot slower too, like speed just like hypermobile people, which is like a frustrating thing where I'll use myself for an example. Like I have to like be very consistent and like kind of trudge along with exercises that are like upper body focused because my shoulders are my like problem thing where I'm like the progress I've made with like squatting or in like weirdly even like deadlifting doesn't bother them as much versus like bench pressing.
Hmm.
Like, where I'm like, we're gonna go up like 2 pounds every like 3 months because I'm like fucking struggling to like stabilize the, like not a heavy weight. And so the speed at like which your body makes progress when you're hypermobile is a lot slower, and that can be really frustrating for people. But the alternative is to make no progress. So
That's such a good point. I felt this myself too, like with pull-ups, for example. Like I started trying to do pull-ups last year, and I have been able to do pull-ups like a long time ago in my past, but I at the time ended up with like a weird neck strain from overdoing it on pull-ups. So like I haven't done pull-ups at this point in years, and I'm a year into it and I'm still not there yet. And like
yeah.
pull-ups in their own right are difficult. So like we'll say that. But it is very frustrating. And sometimes you feel like when you're doing the training, you're like, this isn't working. I'm not getting the results. And when you have a hypermobile body, it is going to take longer. And you have to just stay the course. And that can be very frustrating, and then it sucks.
Yeah.
The cycle you mentioned earlier is what I call the chronic pain cycle of suck.
Okay, I love it.
Because you get stuck in this cycle, and again you go around and around and around until all of a sudden you're way in way worse condition than you want to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I find a lot of athletes and former athletes in that cycle too. And then there's the frustration of the comparison to like, well, a year ago I could do this and now I'm like not even close.
Yeah. And the other one that a lot of people get stuck in is the I'm comparing myself to somebody that doesn't have my like injury history or the same like tissue, I'm gonna call it dysfunction, as somebody else, like especially in like a group class like pole where you don't know the person next to you. It's like anything, right? And so you can technically start like at a beginner. Neither one of you had ever touched a pole before in your life, and like I have floppy shoulders and a history of injuries with them, and this person is not hypermobile and has like zero injury history. Like, yeah, they're gonna make progress a lot faster than I am because we're not actually starting on the same level. We're like, drastically different, and that can be really challenging for people to navigate. And unfortunately, more often than not, the like hypermobile person will push themselves beyond their capacity because they feel like they should match the person next to them. And that ends up in like them being injured. And then we're in the that like chronic cycle that I was talking about where they're like, I need to catch up, like I'm behind. Da 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 da. And so I don't know. Well, yeah, forever one of my things that I post about on Instagram is like, we're not all the same. Like I wish we were, but we are not.
I know. And that's something like I talk about that probably more with clients and patients one on one than I do talking about it online. Should be talking about it more online because it's one of the most common or prevalent things that I see too. And
Yeah,
then I have gotten caught in before too, because you get this mindset of like you're feeling behind and like you want to push, and you have to be on your own timeline. You have to have your blinders on and
yeah,
really like don't look at what other people are doing and compare you to you, from one week to the next, instead of like looking around and seeing what other people are doing or what you used to do, 3 years ago or whatever.
yeah. One time I couldn't remember the word blinders, and so I called them eye muffs. Because I was like literally like, what are these called? I was teaching a class, and I only taught beginners, and so this was like one of my messages that I would say like all the time. I was like, I need you to like not pay attention to what the person next to you is doing because you don't know. if they've been pulling for like years and it's like your first day, or like if it's their first day too. And so I was like, put your eye muffs on and go from there. And so I still use that every once in a while where I'm like, eye muffs, like, come on.
I might have to steal that now.
Do it.
Okay, so we're talking about like, certain misconceptions. While we're on this topic, are there any other like really prevalent misconceptions or things that you hear about in the pole community with regard to injuries or fitness or anything like that?
Yeah, there's still, unfortunately, the messaging that like if you're experiencing pain or you have an injury that you need to take 2 weeks off and like rest and then that will like heal it. And a pattern that I've noticed is people will rest and then they'll just go back to doing exactly what they were doing. Like there's not any sort of like, oh, I'm gonna deload for 2 weeks and then I'm gonna start at like a lower level and like kind of like rebuild my capacity back up, or I'm gonna like deload and do a bunch of like off the pole training. It's like I took 2 weeks off and now I'm gonna go back to doing really, really hard things. Why am I hurt? I don't like understand what is going on. And so yeah, really working on that, like that's not how we actually heal from things. Ice isn't the solution to everything. Stretching isn't the solution to everything. Um, the other, I think, really big misconception, especially with social media, is that things are easy because somebody else can make them look easy. And that, yeah, I think that all kind of plays into a lot of the reasons why we have so many injuries is that um yeah, people will like post tutorials or see tutorials and you're like, oh, I can do that, not having any sort of like, I don't even know what the right word is, filter or like awareness of being able to watch it and be like, oh, okay, that person is like holding their entire body weight in one arm. Like, can I hold my entire body weight in one arm? No. I probably should work on getting like that skill checked off the list before I attempt to do this like this whole combo. And yeah, that misconception that happens a lot. The other, sorry, this is like just a random list. There's a bunch of them. For some reason, I don't know why. This is one that I haven't quite figured out. How a lot of people go after tricks in a class, especially, is they will go until they like physically can't do it anymore. And so you'll like learn a trick, which is like a position on the pole, and it'll be like go until failure every single time. There's like not a lot of talk around like, hey, like, is this like really challenging for you? Like, we probably shouldn't be doing a lot of reps of it, or like maybe we should start, at like a lot of reps of like the more accessible movement and then, decrease as you get like closer to doing the full trick and it gets harder for you. It's like full send like until failure and then one more rep and then that one more is where they like end up getting hurt and they're like, I don't know what I did, like I don't understand how I got hurt, and I'm like, okay. Which is like not trying to be like a judgy ass human, but I'm like, were you not tired, like were you not feeling like sensations in your body before you did this? And they were like, yeah, but I wanted to get like a different angle for my like screenshot for Instagram, or like nobody's ever told me that like I should pay attention to like when I start feeling fatigued, or like when when should I take like, it's a metal bar in your squishy body, like it hurts versus like my body is hurting because I'm pushing it too far. Um, so like a lot of, I don't know, a lot of it is like people don't have a lot of like exercise science training concept understanding,
Right.
with like individual students and then instructors too. And so yeah, I'm like, the more, I guess, like the more you know about how you actually like see progress in skills, I think the one, it would be a lot more efficient for you to train, and then two, you people wouldn't be hurt as often.
Yeah, and I think like a big piece of that too is like, being in a group environment. I know myself like in a group fitness class, like I'm gonna push myself a lot harder because I'm around other peers and I'm trying to like compete in a way and like just do as much as I can. versus like if I'm working out by myself, like I'm a little bit more, it's easier for me to be more introspective and be like, oh, like I'm getting tired or like that doesn't feel good. I'm gonna back off of
Yeah.
that. And I think having maybe that group environment could impact it a little bit. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's people's like normal default way of like being in a group. And so one of the things that I have been emphasizing, especially when I teach instructors, is like people are gonna look to you for like guidance and like leadership on this. And so if you are not telling people to like not look at your neighbor or not telling them that like, hey, some things are going to be really easy for some people and that thing can be like borderline impossible for you. Let's talk about like ways to, progressively get into skills or like RPE, or like reps in reserve. Like these are all, I think, topics of conversation that need to happen. Or even just like, hey, before you go again, can you like take 3 seconds and check in with yourself and just see like how your body is feeling? And if it's not feeling great, like there's no shame in you like taking a break and sitting, you know, sitting for a minute, letting your energy systems like rejuvenate before you go again. Um, and so I don't actually, like last night I was dancing with some of my friends and one of them was trying to do I don't know, a fucking crazy ass goddamn move and he was struggling. Like he did it at the beginning and then like got down and tried to do it like again and was like failing and failing, failing. And he was getting really angry at himself. And I was like, bruh, like this is like the high end of your capacity. Like fucking chill for like 2 minutes. Like let one of the other one of us that are here have our turn to like do whatever we want to train. And like I can guarantee when you go back on it, like you will be successful. And wouldn't you know, he was. I don't like you literally just need to chill. Like you just need to like rest, not push yourself like so hard all the time and like things will go better. But
But those like I think those are things, at least for me, like we take for granted because we've known for years and years about the principles of like training and rest intervals and programming. And I think I too sometimes forget. I'm like, yeah, people don't actually like in my programs, like I have to tell people I want you to rest
mm-mm.
for 60 seconds or 2 minutes or whatever, like before you do this again. And I think like we have to be very intentional about that because people don't know and they don't know what they don't know. And then you
Yeah.
add the like social context of like, oh, they're in front of other people, you don't want to be embarrassed, like, that sort of thing. And then there's this like inner competitor that wants to get it right. And, so I think like that's tricky, especially in a group setting. But I love that that's why you're also talking to instructors, because I
Mhm.
think that's obviously like a really prime market for making sure that more pole dancers don't get injured or at least have a little bit better coaching, and reduce their risk for injuries so that they are cued on those things and that becomes more of a normal part of the sport.
Yeah, which is actually I felt kind of dumb for a minute because like how long was I working with people before? Because I literally just launched my instructor course last year. So it was like 3 years of me being like, I don't understand why I'm continuing to see the same fucking injuries. And like the same injuries and the same story, like over and over and over again. And so how I started my like how to not fuck up your body pole dancing series was like I had like this like the eighth conversation in a week about like the same shit. And I was like, I cannot have this conversation again. Like I will, like don't get me wrong, like I will, but I'm like, I don't understand. And so I grabbed my microphone and I was like, hello, friends. Like, welcome to a new series, How to Not Fuck Up Your Body Pole Dancing. And that was really helpful for like people on like an individual level. And then yeah, when was it? It would have been like 2024, the beginning of 2024. I was like, the only way that I'm gonna have like a big impact on the pole world is if I start talking to people that are teaching, 20, 30, 40 people in a week, depending upon like what their studio size is. And I can like drill into their brains, like these are important things. Like these are important things for you to know and like you to have in your training. Because I also deal with a lot of like injured instructors because they're not following these like things at all. And I was like, and I need you to yap to your students. I need you to like have your warm-ups be talking about a concept. I need you to like interrupt people when you see them, like pushing themselves to the point where you're like, you need a break. I need you to like force rest. I used to do that in my classes too, where I'm like, everybody sit on the fucking ground. Like nobody is touching the pole until the timer goes off. Like y'all are trying too much, you're doing too much. And then you get to hear a TED talk for the next like 2 minutes about like RPE and like the importance of taking like rest intervals. And so yeah, as soon as I don't know, like had that light bulb moment where I'm like, I still need to talk to individual students, but like I need to talk to the people that are having more of an impact on students. Yeah, that was yeah, like kind of a game changer in my business for sure. And then also I think the like trajectory of where the pole like culture could go with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. When you started doing that and I was watching online and you started putting that course out, I was like, "Oh my God, that's so brilliant." So, I want to respect your time, but I've got maybe one or two more questions. Do you have time for one
Okay.
or two more questions?
Yeah, I thought we were talking for like 20 minutes. I was like, I have to been an hour already. I'm like, I'm good.
I kind of want to circle back just briefly to something we were talking about earlier with regard to, we were talking about hypermobility and we were talking about the importance of strength training and training at end ranges. I think, and this is a concept everywhere, not just in pole or artistic communities, but this idea that when you strength train, you're going to make yourself stiffer and not as
Mm.
flexible. Can we talk a little bit about that? And then also like maybe layered into the context of like why, yes, mobility is still important, but how do we train both and be effective in both?
Yeah. Okay. So where do I want to go with this? A lot of hypermobile people are very stiff, which blows like people's brains. Like if they don't know that they're hypermobile and I'm like watching them, I'm like, oh, you're hypermobile. And they're like, oh no, I like don't have the ability to like do an oversplit or I don't have like, the crazy like overhead flexion that you see in some people. And I'm like, yeah, but if I like actually watch your body move, like we got some wonky things happening at your joint level. So tight muscles can be a way for your body to create stability if you're hypermobile. The way that you like decrease that tightness is by being stronger at your end ranges or at whatever positions like necessarily like strong in. Um, it takes a lot of strength to be like flexible and like control it because like some people are just like, yeah, like flopping themselves into things and I'm like you don't really have it like any ability to control that. Like your body's not going to feel good in a few years if it even feels good right now, which I'm questioning whether it actually does feel good. And so the fear of like losing your like range of motion is real, but we do know that strength training can increase your like range of motion access. Like the more safe your body feels in positions, the more range of motion it's going to grant you access to. A lot of flexibility training is like nervous system training.
Mhm.
And so how we feel, which is a really interesting concept of like how did our nervous system feel safe enough to let us have access to crazy ranges of motion? Because in theory, all of us could do like crazy things, right? Like all of us could be like contortionists. Like you could, as I don't know how old you are. I'm 36. Like as
30.
a 36-year-old, okay. Like we could start like training contortion things by like working on like our stability and strength in like very specific positions. And like as we get stronger, our body will gain us access to more range of motion. That timeline probably, would be really long because we started like at an older age
Yeah.
than if we started when we were, like a little bit younger. Um, but yeah, you can build it. And so it's a myth. It's a myth that strength training is gonna have you not be as flexible.
Hmm.
An issue that I hear from people quite often is they feel like DOMs, and that is like kind of alarming to them after they have been like doing like a strength session where they're like, oh, like I'm really stiff, and so like I don't want to do this because I'm stiff. And I'm like, no, if you're getting to the point where you're like consistently feeling like delayed onset muscle soreness
That's
after,
DOMS. Yeah, DOMS is
yeah,
delayed onset muscle soreness.
yeah, after your strength session, we're doing too much. Like I don't want you like not being able to walk for 2 days after your like squat workout or your deadlift workout or whatever. So like we need to like dial that down so that you're not having that response after training. And then yeah, working on the stability muscles, like the like smaller, right, like our rotator cuff and our like deep six of our hip, thinking like shoulder and hips more often than not. Like those need to be worked on, and then like the global patterns need to be worked on too. And I feel like a lot of times people do one or the other, not both. Which is it's interesting because every time that I work with like really any person, because it's like shoulders or hamstrings are kind of my like go-to. The first chunk is like I need your rotator cuff to be a rotator cuff. Like I need your shoulder to move like as a shoulder is like designed to move. I need your hip to move like a hip is supposed to move. And it's a lot of like little exercises, right? Like you're doing like almost silly where you're like what the fuck is the point of me like doing this, but I'm like I promise you if you like stay the course and like we can get these muscles to be like, hey, yeah, I do have the ability to like turn on and do my job. It will help the like global pattern that we're trying to get your body to be able to do like so much.
Yeah, and also just building that awareness then of those motions. And I think like, a lot of this is like body awareness, especially in artistic stuff. Like you just need to be aware, and then your body needs to obviously be able to tolerate and then hold load in those
Do the thing.
positions. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's fascinating to me because like sometimes I will admit I don't like do the best job of explaining like, oh, you're going to be doing like dumb exercises for a while. And dumb like in quotation marks, like they're not dumb, but
Right,
like
right.
when you start like you pay a lot of money to work with somebody and you're like laying on your back with a yoga block under your elbow holding a can of soup and you're like rotating into like internal and external rotation, you're like, you charge what to have me do this? Like literally get fucked. Um, and I'm like, no, like if you can't control like your shoulder rotating like out to the side holding a can of soup, you have no business asking it to hold your entire body weight up. And so like we need to build the foundation.
Yep, yep. There are so many other tangents I want to go down right now, but we can't. We don't have time for them all. So, what I'm going to say is we're gonna have to do this again,
Okay.
because I
Twist
have,
my arm.
yeah. So before we go though, are there any other like things that have been top of mind lately for you, things that you want people to know, both in the pole community and or outside of the pole community?
Um, Yeah, I think the one that I have been spinning on a lot lately that I'm still trying to figure out the best way to share this information like broadly to people is like every movement that we do can be broken down into like little chunks, right? So even if we take something as simple as like a squat, or if you want to do like a deadlift or whatever, like a functional movement, there's like things that you expect to have happen at like, your ankle, your knee, your hip, your spine, etc. And not everyone's body's going to move the same because we're all like built different, right? Like
Yep.
my legs are probably longer than yours, your torso might be longer than mine, etc. So there's not like a blanket statement, but like being able to take a big movement and see like does does this person have the ability in their shoulder to do what we need it to do? Does their spine have the ability to do what we need it to do? Hip, knee, ankle, whatever. And then like extrapolating that to the pole tricks and being able to be like, before I ask this person to do this, how do I, in an efficient manner, because pole is often taught in like a group setting, like say, yeah, you're good. Absolutely fucking not. Like,
Hmm.
or like you can do this part of it, but you guys can do like a little bit more. Um, and so yeah, that has been especially with my instructor course, where I'm like, how do I? Because there's like a lot of like background information that has to be known about that too, where I'm like, first I need you to understand like how a shoulder is designed to move. And then I need you to like take that information and like create an assessment that's going to make sense for the trick that you're teaching.
Hmm.
And then like build out progressions for for those sorts of things. And so yeah, that has been my where I'm like, it's there, but like it takes a lot of like kind of backgroundy things, which I've gotten some pushback about where people are like, do I really need to know like how the shoulder works? Like, can't I just like teach dance? And I'm like,
Mm.
yes, yes, and also if we're like trying to not have our body be injured, like I don't know if you saw my Instagram story where a person like face planted into the floor the
Mhm.
other day. Yeah, where like that was like a really great example where I'm like, if the person that I'm assuming was the instructor in the video was able to recognize that like A plus B equals you're gonna face plan on the floor, like we could have stopped that from happening. And so how do I make that more easily accessible to people
Mhm.
without them having to go to school for 8 years to be able to
Right.
like yeah
Right.
look at that.
Well, and that's what I was gonna say is that like this sounds like this is like in part like this is an area that just needs expertise. Like it needs somebody who knows what they're looking at
Hmm.
in order to do that. But there has to be some way to break down, at least the basics of that sort of thing. But
Yeah.
that's tricky because, my brain immediately went to like a movement screen, right? Well, a movement screen is going to tell you a little bit, but it's not going to tell you how those things interact then under load or like upside down or like,
Hmm.
so like it's going to look different, depending on the person and their capability. And like, I don't know if you can simplify it down to like a movement screen and have that be enough. I don't know.
Yeah. This is like a quest that I'm on. And so I've been asking, who was I talking to? One of my friends is like a CrossFit like level 2 coach where I'm like how do they break down? Because like people get injured in CrossFit and like there's like standards for different moves. And so I'm like, how do they take this information and like apply it to the movements that you know you're going to be coaching in a typical CrossFit class? And it's great, but the problem with pole is there's so many different things. Like there's so many different styles, and within each different style, there's levels. So like if you're listening to this and you like don't pole, there's styles where you literally don't leave the ground, which is like the style that I like. Like I literally am like laying on the floor for like half of the song. And then there's ones where you're standing, but you're not really like going like up the pole. And then there's ones where you're going up the pole. And then there's like spin pole versus the pole's not spinning. There's like flips, there's heels, there's no heels. And I'm like, how do I take like such a broad form of movement and be able to like shoop it down to where the average person is able to like look at somebody and be like, yes or no, or like let me do like a movement screen or like a something before I'm asking you to flip yourself around.
Hmm.
And so the current solution that I have for this next round of my instructor course is we're just going to watch a shit ton of videos and we're just going to like go over like here's the end goal. What are we caring about in this particular move? And then like here's an example of like somebody failing at it. So, which I hate fail videos to be honest. Like they like kind of make me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like yeah, on like multiple levels where I'm like that poor person. Like you just literally smacked your entire like nose into the floor. But that's like the only solution that I've been able to come up with is like we're gonna look at what it should look like and then look at where somebody went awry and like connect the dots.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it
Well, good luck.
goes. Yeah.
If anybody's gonna figure it out, Emily, it's you. So
Yeah,
I believe
true.
that wholeheartedly. So keep at it, because I'm sure you'll come up with something amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm curious to see well, with a lot of things, and I'm sure you see that too, where it's like how like we built the skill on how to do this, and so I'm like, how do we take this skill and just like teach it to other people?
In an accessible way that, like, yeah,
Yeah, and then like a group setting too, right? Because there's the last course that I ran, there was like 100 people that enrolled in it, and so I'm like, I don't know like your educational background or like what you know or what you don't know, so like how do I take a lot of information and make it digestible to people? So
hmm Well, I believe in you. You
thank
can
you.
do it. And I am so freaking proud of you and all of the growth from the last 4 or 5 years. It's been so cool to like have met you at the very beginning and then to have watched you over the past 4 or 5 years become like the contact for like pole rehab. At least from my perspective online. Like that's so rad. And I think that's such a cool and obviously such a huge need for more education and more support in that space. So thank you
Yeah,
for
thank
doing what you
you.
do.
Thank you. Can I share one random story before I
Of
let you go?
course, of course.
Okay. So I moved to San Diego. It was in June, however many months ago that was. And like I didn't really know a lot of people here. So I was like trying to like integrate myself into the pole community. Decided to go to a pole show. I'm in the bathroom, like washing my hands, girls chit-chatting next to me. I'm like a kind of a nosy body. And so I like kind of like add my 2 cents to their conversation. And the one girl like whipped her head around and she's like, I know you. And I was like, I promise you, you don't. I literally just moved here like 2 weeks ago. Like I promise you, you don't know me. And she was like, no, I do. And I was like, what? And she's like, you're on Instagram. And I was like, I was like, yeah, you are correct. So basically, like long story short, it's trippy. It's trippy for me to be like recognized like in the pole community still, like to the point where like I'm literally just like washing my hands, being like, yeah, this bathroom's cute. And people are like, I know who you are. So yeah, it's been a journey. It's been interesting.
Wow. Don't forget
Why?
about us little people, okay?
Okay, I guess I don't know. No, I'll forget about you in a heartbeat. No, yeah, it's been it's been a wild ride, and like same for you to see like yeah all the shit that you've done.
Thank you. Yeah. And the fact that we're still standing. I mean, I take more pride in that than anything. I think that like we're still here, we're still evolving. We're gonna be forever evolving and changing and, doing
Yeah,
what it is to be as good of providers as we can be, provide great care, and stay afloat as a small business. We're just out here doing the thing.
we're just doing it. I'm
And
proud of you.
yeah, thank you. Thank you. All right, Emily. So where can people connect with you if they want to get in touch?
Yeah, so all of my everything is Dr. Emily Rausch, dremilyrausch.com, Instagrams at dr.emilyrausch. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
hit
awesome.
me up.
Amazing.
Fair warning though, if you do follow me, I do pole dance myself, and so you will see me dance. I like warn everybody about that, where I'm like, you will see my butt,
Yep.
and if you're not okay with that, then like you probably shouldn't follow me.
That's okay because if the people that need you need to see you pole dance, that's part of it. So yeah, I for one think it's absolutely amazing. I think it's so badass and so cool. And I'm like, I can't do that, but I enjoy watching you do it. So you do the thing.
Really do it. Yeah, just like existing online is like super wild, and so
Totally.
long story short, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing what you do with us. I think it's amazing. Keep crushing it. I'll be here in your corner. And that's it for today. So, if you liked what you heard, please follow Dr. Emily on socials. Give us a like, a rating, a review below. Share this episode with someone who you think might enjoy it. That is the number one way you can help support our small businesses is by just spreading the word. So, thank you and have a wonderful day.
Bye.
We'll see you next time.